Welcome to episode 5 of Science is Really Freaking Cool, and on today's episode, all about ionic compounds. An ionic compound is a compound made out of ions. Pretty self-explanatory. An ionic compound has 5 characteristics. Number 1, they are pure substances formed as a result of an attraction between particles. Number 2, they can be metals or non-metals. 3, they're all solid at room temperature. Number 4, they're all good electrical conductors. And number 5, they also have a crystal shape. Now, an ionic compound is made up of all kinds of ions, but what exactly is an ion? An ion is an atom that has become electrically charged due to the loss or gain of one or more electrons. Ionic compounds have both positive and negative ions. Positive ions are atoms that have lost one or more electrons. These are also known as cations. An easy way to remember this is to think of cations or positive ions as positive ions, like a cat. Now, along with these positive ions, there's also negative ions known as anions. These negative ions become negative by gaining one or more electrons. An easy way to remember this one is to think of an anion or a negative ion as Anakin, the villainous character in Star Wars. Anion, Anakin, negative ions. On an element like this in the periodic table, you can find the ion charge right here in the top right corner. When writing an element's ion charge, you write it as a superscript, up high like an exponent. When doing this, you use a plus or a negative symbol. For example, Pb4+. This is lead, and its ion charge is positive 4. Now let's get into writing ionic compounds. When writing an ionic compound, you write the metal ion symbol first, then the non-metal symbol. For example, calcium chloride. Calcium is the non-metal, so you write it first and its ion charge up here, 2+. And then you would write chloride, the non-metal, and the non-metal's ion charge right there. After doing all of that, you would change the suffix or the ending of the non-metal negative ion to "ide." So as you can see here, it went from being calcium chlorine to calcium chloride. Now we know how to do it all separately, so let's put it together. You would put the metal element symbol first, and then the non-metal symbol. Then you would write their ion charges, just like that. After doing this, we would have to use something called the crisscross method to balance their charges. Now, this looks a little confusing, but essentially, you're just swapping their symbols. So if calcium, or Ca, was 2+, now it would be -1. But since you don't write the 1, it would just stay as Ca, or calcium. Now, since you've swapped the -1, now you have to swap the +2. But it's important to note that when swapping, you drop the signs. So it's no longer a +2, it's just a 2. Now let me write it out without all the crisscross. In the end, this is what your formula is going to look like, and it represents how many atoms of each element are in it. For example, there's no number after the calcium, meaning there's only one atom. But there's a number 2 after the chloride, or chlorine, meaning that there's 2 atoms. Now you know what an ionic compound formula looks like. And this was a lot of information, but in the end, this was all about ionic compounds. See you next time.